Wow. Where to start? 2.5 years ago, Dan pretty much did barge into my studio. And I remember that day pretty well because he was dressed in his three-piece suit, red tie, had just come from a meeting in the city, and he looked like $1 million. I, on the other hand, was wearing combat trousers, boots, a skateboarding shirt, and I had something growing from here. What's that called?
I don't know what it's called. I didn't like it, whatever it's called.
I didn't like it. And he came in, and for 90 minutes, we talked about QLA, we talked about Dan, about his life, about his mentoring. And toward the end of the show, he started looking at me and saying, so, is this what you're doing, Brian? Is this it? And that's it. And at the end of the show, he famously said, if you want to be successful, it takes money, not Zen. And hence, my relationship started with Dan. And I still remember standing out on the street, on Great Eastern Street in Shoreditch in London. And he stood just about a meter away from me and he said, Brian, he said, I change people's lives. And I thought he was out of his mind. But he went away, and as I told him on the show, the London Reelers, they're either going to love you or they're going to hate you. And as history has shown, they pretty much love him. And Dan stayed in touch. And I'll never forget, and I actually verified this and gone back and looked at the emails, how generous Dan can actually be. And from the very beginning, it was, let me know if I can help you. Let me know how I can help you. And this is not in my mind now that this is in my hand, but these are actually there. I've gone back to the Gmail account, and it's all there. And Dan stayed in touch, and about 6 months later, he got me to come to the Ritz, as I'm sure many of you have done. And I remember I had to go there on a Sunday night, and I had to put on a suit and tie. Something I hadn't done for 4 years since I've been in the city, probably 10 years, because I didn't even wear a tie at the end of my career. And we got there, and for the first 30 minutes, Dan, of course, insulted my wife, the usual stuff. And then later he said, Brian, I want to help you, I want to mentor you, but you've got to come to the castle. He said, I can't do this remotely, I've tried, it doesn't work, you got to come to the castle. And so a couple martinis later, I said yes. And I would say the rest was history, but as most of you know, sometimes booking the castle and showing up to the castle are two different things. And I know people to this day even pay for it and don't even get here.
Correct.
And I know what that's about. That's resistance and that's fear. And I almost didn't come to the castle. And I had a lot of good reasons not to come. That were probably bullshit reasons. We just had a miscarriage. Didn't tell anybody about that. And I thought, got all the reasons not to go, And I was like, what the fuck? Dan's gonna talk all this shit. I'm not gonna go. And finally, I just bucked up and I made the trip. And I still remember taking that 6-hour train ride up here. And I tell you, I was in my mind ready to go at a moment's notice. I was going to have my bag packed every single day, and I was going to be like, if he pushes it, And I still remember walking in the door, and Sally were here, and immediately all of that was gone, because I could tell Dan was here to help me. And he's here to help all of us if we're willing to step up to the plate and listen and get over our own fears and our own hang-ups. And so for me, it was being an engineer and being risk-averse. And I interviewed Dan right there in front of the fireplace that night, and he told me what the whole week was going to be like. And I was sitting there, almost in mock laughter. And I was looking like a punk, had my buttons done on my shirt. And I'm sure Dan was just thinking, just you wait. And he told me the first day, you're going to pass out. People have shit their pants and all of this stuff. And I was just like, yeah. And so that first day, true to form, it was a powerful day for me. And I went back to my room. It was the one by the Great Wall, or the Walled Garden, the
Carrington Cottage.
And I laid on the ground that night in the dark, and I just thought, what have I been doing with my life? Here I thought I was doing big things. Here I thought I was pushing myself to the limit, but I wasn't really doing a goddamn thing. And I was wasting my life because what happens tomorrow? What if I die? What have I really done? Why aren't I pushing the envelope every single day? And that's the big realization I had that night. And so I came back in and spent the next 6 days here and learned, yes, I am a bit risk averse. When you go to MIT and they teach you how to make bridges not to break and planes not to come out of the sky, you tend to minimize risk. But it's a lousy way to build a business. It's a lousy way to do anything big with your life, I learned. And so one of the big things I took away was not to trust my instincts to minimize risk and to go out and grab it, put myself on the line and go big. But a lot of people forget that the week here, it can actually be a whole hell of a lot of fun too, right? All the YouTubers see all the hard stuff. And by the way, is this YouTube, by the way? Go fuck yourself, YouTube. Most people forget how much fun it is to be here because even Dan can't be a hard ass all the time. And I found that when we were in the classroom listening to his stories about the 4 presidents and the queen he met, and I still hear new stories. And I've been watching him for 2 years. And I found when we had a coffee break, I looked over, and what were we doing? We were all sitting around Dan listening to more of his stories. And so for me, we had an all-male class, Dom remembers. It was more of like a wolf pack. And we had a good old time. And I don't think I wanted to leave. And so I went back to London and decided to step things up and really change my game. Start hiring, start going big, and start really doing some things. And so Dan became immortalized in my TED Talk, and we started doing things and expanding and really just trying to go for it. We did our event together at the Ritz. First time Dan did something, an event outside of the castle this century. We had 33 people fly from around the world to come in to wear suits and to get yelled at. They weren't expecting it. I don't think the Ritz was expecting it as well. And from there, our relationship has gone on, and it goes up and it goes down. And sometimes I don't want to hear what Dan has to tell me. But as I wrote in one of my blogs, the old man, he's always right. Because he's telling you what you don't want to hear about yourself, but what you know is true. And that is, you're not stepping yourself up. You're not stepping your game up. And you get caught up in fear. As Dan says, false expectations appearing real. And so just when you make a big win, you start to sit back and get comfortable. And that's when Dan and Sally come to town, and we have dinner, and I cherish those dinners. And at the end of it, Dan reminds me that I'm about 5% of where I should be. And I don't want to hear it, and I'm like, I go home, and I wake up the next day, and I think, well, maybe he's probably right. And then it's time to go in and try to step it up, and try to step it up. And Dan's right. I listen to probably 5% of what he says. And still, I guess I managed to do some things. And
a lot of things.
A lot of things. And so Dan's here, doing God's work in this castle, in my opinion. When I hear he doesn't have dates booked up for next year, I pity all the people that never got the chance to be here. I really do. Because people don't really know what this is like until they come up here and get on those calls and get that mentoring for a year. There's nothing like it. Well, we all know that. And the last week, you probably got more experience than a 2-year MBA or your first 2 years at Goldman Sachs in the M&A department. And I'm watching the videos, and I've been around those guys, and Dan knows deals in his sleep on the back of his hand. You can tell he's got a gut feel for it. And he's busy dragging all of our sorry asses across the goal line. And that's what he does. And that's what he's going to keep doing, I hope. And so when Dan and Sally told me in August when they came to London that I was going to be honored to be on that wall, I didn't know what to say. I had a WTF moment, says Dan. Dan texted us, what the fuck? What am I doing up there with the people that have created billions of dollars worth of value? I mean, these are the ones that we look up when we're in the classroom, like, one day? I don't even know, even thinking about being up there one day. And so I was shocked. I was honored. It's been an amazing journey or process. knowing Dan for the past 2.5 years. Again, I have to force myself sometimes to go back in, but I know it's the right thing to do. And as Dan said once about his children, he said, I don't want them to love me. He said, 20 years after I'm dead, I want them to respect me. And I think that's what he's doing with all of us here. And so if I liked hearing from Dan all the time, if I wanted to give him a big kiss all the time, well, he's probably not doing his work. And I know that, and he knows that, and he knows that I know that, and I know that he knows that I know that. And so we continue. And I got a funny feeling I'm going to know Dan for quite a long time. I don't know who's going to kick the bucket first.
I know. I know. If Dave Ashley says he's going to live to be 140, I'll be living to 300.
And I'm sure we're going to have some ups and some downs. And I don't think I'd really have it any other way. So I want to say, Dan Peña, I love you very much. I also hate you very much. You are a cunt, and you're also a huge hero to me. And it changed my life, and I will always honor that. To be on your wall is a tremendous honor. I'll show this proudly in my home. And from all of us here, I think I've spoken for many people here. We honor you, and to your future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Brian is deserving to be up on that wall. And I'm looking forward to one of you or all of you to gain a place on the wall of fame, not the shame wall, but anyway. And the ones that are up there stay focused. And they've stayed focused the longest, and it's being a high performance person is being all you can be all the time, not just part time, and not just when you feel comfortable, or not when you're supposed to be on crutches. As at the beginning of the week, as Dr. Vince knows, I was on opiates, but then I thought that maybe my speech was going to be, because my leg hurt so much, and I'm supposed to be on these crutches, so I stopped taking those, and of course, then my leg started hurting, but I got through it. And but I wish I had on film every time I fell. Oh my God, my mentor program for every year is gone. Yeah, and no, I know that I want to believe that that's not why you were so concerned. But if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do back-to-back seminars like I just did with a bum leg. That was not an intelligent thing for me to do. But my surgeon who fixed my knee, who's also the Queen's surgeon, made a mistake in his diary. So we had to postpone my surgery 30 days, which I guess even the Queen's doctor makes mistakes. But thank you very much. I'm very honored. The nice things that Brian said about me. I mean, he's going to be talking to you, and he's going to be here the next couple of days. And we're going to enjoy ourselves. And I'm going to attempt to get up to the snooker room, up the spiral staircase, probably with great difficulty. But his camera crew's here, and I didn't recognize him all cleaned up. But thank you very much, and I appreciate all the nice words. Thank you.